Andy Weir's project Hail Mary is a 500-page math problem with a space spider in it. The 2026 film keeps the spider and throws out most of the math. That isn't a small change, it's the whole adaptation, and book fans are still arguing about whether it was a betrayal or a rescue. 7 specific rewrites decide the answer. Andy Weir's project Hail Mary is a massive, beloved puzzle box of hard sci-fi. Book fans walked into the theater expecting a meticulous, math-heavy survival story, essentially The Martian, but with a roommate. The challenge for the film was translating that spreadsheet energy into actual cinematic emotion. It had to make the science feel less like a lecture and more like a lifeline. In the novel, diving into Adrian's atmosphere is a desperate, blind fact-finding mission. They don't even know the Tau-amoeba organism exists until after they survive the drop. The film flips this entirely, having them discover the cure before they dive. It turns a blind scientific sampling run into a high-stakes heist, trading a bit of procedural logic for a massive injection of narrative momentum. Building trust in the book is a slow, agonizing process of cautious testing and xenonite barriers. The movie doesn't have time for that. Rocky gifts Grace a physical O2 molecule model, and Grace takes a wildly unscientific leap of faith, ripping his helmet off right there in the shared tunnel. It is incredibly reckless for a biologist, but it dramatically accelerates their bond in a way that feels deeply satisfying on screen. The novel is relentlessly plot-driven, functioning almost like a survival manual. The film adds a completely new mental health node, a VR room where Grace shows Rocky Earth's oceans. Here they bond over their respective lost romantic partners. It's a brilliant, character-driven layer absent from the book, giving these 2 lonely survivors a deeply emotional anchor. Weir loves his sprawling, geopolitical megaprojects, dedicating pages to nuking Antarctica or building Sahara black panels. The adaptation excises all of that exhausting global politics. Instead, we get a grounded, lo-fi Plywood Box experiment and a new, deeply unimpressed government agent named Carl. It shrinks the scale of the problem to fit inside a single room, which makes the stakes feel far more personal. First Contact in the book involves a meticulous, overly cautious exchange of star maps and hull chippings. The film throws out the caution and leans into pure whimsy. Grace literally crafts a model of his ship out of ramen noodles to establish peace with his new alien neighbor. It's a visual shorthand that tells you exactly who Grace is as a teacher, completely replacing the dry data exchange. Before Rocky shows up, Grace is completely alone, which in a book means chapters of internal monologue. The film solves this isolation problem by giving the ship's computer a distinct voice and the name Mary. By upgrading the AI into a conversational companion, it gives Grace someone to bounce his panic off of, making his early amnesia far more watchable. The original Earth crew in the novel is kept at a professional, clinical distance. The film decides to actually humanize them, adding a brand new flashback to a bittersweet astronaut party. Watching them share a song and a drink amplifies the tragedy of their pre-launch demise. It reminds us exactly what Grace lost, and why he is so terrified of dying alone. Ultimately, the adaptation sacrifices some of the novel's hard sci-fi rigor in favor of emotional pacing and visual storytelling. The hyper-competent problem-solving is streamlined to make room for the odd couple dynamic that actually carries the story. Neither approach is wrong. The book remains a playground for the math nerds. But the film proves that sometimes, you just want to see a guy and a space crab become best friends. Here's what the film figured out, and the book never quite admitted. Alone on a spaceship is a spreadsheet. Alone on a spaceship with a friend is a story. Weir wrote a survival manual and called it a novel. The adaptation had the honesty to fix that. So the real question isn't whether you prefer the book or the film. It's whether you'd rather spend a Saturday calculating Tau-amoeba terminal velocity or watching Rocky see the ocean for the first time and you already know your answer. If this one landed, the channel does a film breakdown every week. Subscribe so the algorithm stops hiding them from you. Drop your verdict in the comments. Which change hurt the most, and which one actually saved the story?